Imagine it's the 1980s. The Cold War is at its peak. On one side, the Warsaw Pact, with its seemingly endless columns of T-72 and T-80 tanks. On the other, NATO, with its brand new M1 Abrams, Challenger und Segunda, and Leopard South. These are the titans of modern warfare, the cutting edge of military technology. But lurking in the background, on the front lines of this ideological struggle, is a ghost from a past war. In West Germany, soldiers were still training on and preparing to fight in tanks that were direct descendants of World War II designs. How is this possible? Why would a nation as technologically advanced as West Germany, sitting on the precipice of a potential World War III, rely on what was essentially 40-year-old technology? This is the strange and fascinating story of the M48 Patton tank and its long service life in the Bundeswehr. To understand why, we have to go back to the ashes of World War II. Germany was in ruins, its once mighty war machine completely dismantled. When West Germany was formed and allowed to rearm in 1955, as part of NATO, it had to start from scratch. It had no tanks, no factories to build them, and no experienced designers left who weren't tainted by the past. The country's primary protector and benefactor was the United States. So, naturally, when the new German army, the Bundeswehr, needed tanks, they looked to their American allies. The first tank to equip the new German Panzer divisions was the M47 Patton. This was very much a stopgap design, essentially a new turret on an older M46 hull. It was a decent tank for its time in the early 50s, but technology was moving fast. By the time the Bundeswehr was getting on its feet, the M47 was already on its way to becoming obsolete. The real workhorse was to be its successor, the M48 Patton. This was the tank that would form the backbone of the Bundeswehr's armored forces for decades. When the M48 first entered service, it was a solid, reliable, and modern main battle tank for the mid-1950s. It had a powerful 90mm gun, decent armor, and good mobility. For the newly formed Bundeswehr, it was a godsend. They received over 1,500 of them, enough to equip their entire armored force. These weren't just hand-me-downs. They were a key part of America's strategy to build a strong, conventional deterrent in Western Europe against a potential Soviet invasion. For Germany, it was a quick and effective way to become a credible military partner within NATO. Building a domestic tank from the ground up would have taken years, maybe even a decade time they simply didn't have. But as the 1950s rolled into the 60s, the M48 started to show its age. The Soviets were introducing new generations of tanks like the T-55 and the T-62. These tanks, particularly the T-62 with its revolutionary 115mm smoothbore cannon, were a serious threat. Their guns could punch through the M48's armor from distances where the M48's 90mm gun would just bounce off. The balance of power was shifting. The Germans knew this. They weren't sitting idle. By the early 1960s, they'd already embarked on a project to build their own, truly modern tank. This project would eventually result in one of the most legendary tanks of all time. The Leopard 1. The Leopard 1 was a complete departure from the Patton philosophy. Instead of prioritizing heavy armor, it focused on firepower and mobility. The thinking was that modern anti-tank weapons were becoming so powerful that no amount of conventional steel armor could reliably stop a direct hit. So, the best defense was to not get hit in the first place. The Leopard 1 was fast, agile, and armed with the superb British L7 105mm gun, which could handle anything the Soviets had. The first Leopard 1 South started rolling off the production lines in 1965. And you'd think, okay, problem solved. They'll just replace all the old M48s with new Leopards. But it's never that simple, especially when it comes to military budgets and logistics. The Leopard 1 was a fantastic tank, but it was also expensive. Phasing out over 1,000 M48s and replacing them all with brand new Leopards was a monumental undertaking that would cost billions and take many years. West Germany needed a strong defense. Asterisk. Now asterisk, they couldn't afford to have a significant portion of their tank fleet be out of commission or undertrained while waiting for a full replacement. So, they came up with a very German solution. A methodical, comprehensive, an incredibly effective upgrade program. If you can't replace them, improve them. This is where the M48 story gets really interesting. Instead of just letting them fade into obsolescence, the Germans re-engineered them. Starting in the late 1960s and continuing through the 70s, the Bundeswehr began a massive rebuild of its M48 fleet. This wasn't just a fresh coat of paint and some new radios. This was a top to bottom overhaul. The most crucial upgrade was the firepower. The original 90mm gun was ripped out. In its place, they installed the same powerful 105mm L7 gun that was in the Leopard 1. This was a game changer. Suddenly, these old Panthers had the teeth to take on modern Soviet T-62s and even early T-72s on an equal footing. They also got a new fire control system, greatly improving their accuracy. The commander's cupola was redesigned to be lower profile, making it a smaller target, and the entire fire control and vision systems were modernized. The result of this program was the M48A2G2. It's a mouthful of a designation, but it represented a tank that, while looking like something from the 50s, had the heart and punch of a tank from the 70s. It was a perfect example of pragmatic German engineering. Why throw away a perfectly good, reliable hull and chassis when you can upgrade its most important components? So, as we move into the late 70s and early 80s, the West German Army had a two-tiered tank force. The elite frontline Panzer divisions were equipped with the Leopard 1. But the Territorial Army, the Home Defense Forces, and some mechanized infantry divisions were still equipped with these heavily upgraded M48 Panthers. Was this ideal? No. Every commander would have preferred to have the latest and greatest equipment. But was it effective? Absolutely. The strategy was sound. The upgraded M48s were more than a match for the older T-55s and T-62. That still made up the bulk of the Warsaw Pact 2nd and 3rd Echelon forces. In the event of an invasion, the Leopard 1 South would be tasked with blunting the spearhead of the attack, taking on the best Soviet tanks. Meanwhile, the M48 formations would be used to defend key areas, counterattack against secondary advances, and deal with the vast numbers of older, but still dangerous, enemy tanks. It was a cost-effective way to maintain a large, credible, and capable armored force. Let's not forget the human element. The M48 was a known quantity. German crews had been training on them for over 2 decades. The mechanics knew them inside and out. There was a huge logistical train of spare parts and expertise already in place. Introducing a brand new tank system across the entire army is a logistical nightmare. By keeping the M48s, they leveraged decades of institutional knowledge. This story continued even as the next generation of tanks arrived. In 1979, West Germany introduced the Leopard 2, a monster of a tank that set the new global standard with its 120mm smoothbore gun and advanced composite armor. It was designed to dominate the battlefield. The plan was to equip the most critical frontline units with the Leopard 2, move the Leopard 1 south to replace the M48s and other units, and finally retire the old patents. But again, budgets, production rates, and the sheer scale of the task meant this was a slow process. Production of the Leopard 2 was focused on outfitting the active forward-deployed Panzer divisions first. This meant that, well into the mid-1980s, you could still find these upgraded World War II descendant M48s serving in the Bundeswehr, particularly in territorial defense units. They stood ready, old soldiers prepared for one last fight, shoulder to shoulder with their grandchildren, the Leopard 1 and Leopard 2. The final chapter for the Bundeswehr's M48s came with the end of the Cold War. With the collapse of the Soviet Union and the reunification of Germany, the massive conventional threat that had defined European defense for 40 years evaporated. The need for a huge stand-in army with thousands of tanks vanished. The German military was downsized, and in this new era, there was finally no more room for the old patents. The last ones were officially retired in the early 1990s, ending a service life of nearly 40 years. So, the next time you see a picture of an M48 patent, don't just see it as a relic of the 1950s. Remember its incredible second life. It's a testament to pragmatic engineering, sound strategic planning, and the old military wisdom of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, just upgrade it. He was a ghost of a past war that stood guard on the front line of the Cold War, a vital and often overlooked piece of that dark, tense, and fascinating period of history. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into military history, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories like this one. We'll see you in the next video.